I'm freaking out.
Nothing now.
I'm 23 years old. Just a very frightening time.
You are listening to the emergency broadcast system serving the Fort Wayne area. The Fort Wayne area. The Fort Wayne area.
These very towers carry the whoa-whoa radio signal. On that morning, Bob Severs was behind the microphone. He had just introduced the Partridge Family, and moments later, he was rudely interrupted.
WOWO received this emergency announcement just moments ago.
We had a system called the Emergency Broadcast System.
This is an emergency action directed by the Emergency Network and directed by the President.
Every week there was a test. Every Saturday morning there was a test.
You've heard Bob Chase tell you that you are to tune to the emergency station in your area.
Certain stations, and WOWO being a 50,000 watt station in those days, Westinghouse Broadcasting, was charged with alerting the surrounding area of about 3 states with the 50,000 watts in case of an emergency.
And we were all used to it. Bob was used to it.
This station has interrupted its regular program at the request of the United States government
until February 20th of 1971.
To participate in the emergency broadcast system
when the warning came through and it was no longer a test.
We had envelopes that were sealed.
Meant to signal a real emergency, matched what was on file at WOWO.
We have received this official emergency action notification with the proper identification indicating a national emergency.
Kind of like a password with today's computers.
And for Bob Severs, he did what he was trained to do. He went on the air narrating what could be the opening salvo of World War III.
That's right, and he did not know that it wasn't.
At this point, at the microphone, I know of nothing to cause this. We are waiting from Stuart Dan in the WOWO newsroom to bring us some information from any of our wire services.
Like a captain going down with his ship, Bob stayed on the air, telling his audience what he knew, which wasn't much.
In the audio, you hear Bob call for all the news people to come to the station if they hear him.
And at this time, I would personally like to urge all members of the WOWO news staff, any in the area and listening, to report to us immediately.
And I was a news person, albeit one with only a year's experience.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you, please do not call us to ask what is the matter. We are endeavoring to find out ourselves.
And I'm wondering if this is going to be it. I mean, that's what everybody was thinking.
But in less than an hour after all of that worry,
the word came by, disregard.
And so, if you think this hasn't been something here at the studio, the Air Force evidently then at Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado put the wrong message tape on the wire.
He said it was the longest 5 minutes of his broadcasting career. It literally frazzled him and wore him out.
Today, 48 years later, that story still echoes through the halls of WOWO.
And I think had it been me, you would have heard how flustered I was or how embarrassed I was or whatever you want to call that. But he didn't skip a beat. I mean, Bob, it was sheer magic, I think, how he handled that whole situation. And I can only hope that if, heaven forbid, that ever happened to me, I could handle it just as gracefully.
So the next time you drive past these towers on US 24, think about all of the history and all of the stories they have yet to bring us.
This is Milne Bay on Papua New Guinea, and it's about as close to a tropical paradise as you can get. Warm Pacific waters, some of the purest in the world, kiss pristine beaches. Thick jungle drapes over the mountains like a green curtain. And the people here, for the most part, are very happy.
We live off the land, and that's the thing that I have come to learn to appreciate.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. Locals call it a slice of paradise. But during World War II, this was the scene of a brutal battle.
The big picture.
The Battle of Milne Bay pitted Allies against the Japanese over control of an airport.
There was no room to maneuver.
American troops slogging through the thick, unforgiving jungle. It was hot, humid, mosquito-ridden, closer to hell than to paradise. Just ask Marcus Guys, born and raised here, a student of the island's history.
It was one of the hardest places to fight. Millen Bay was very, very difficult because of the weather conditions, the mud and the rain, which still happens today, the mud and the rain. It said it was just too much for these. These were just young kids coming up to fight.
The Allies would win this battle, but they turned unspoiled wilderness into a junkyard. Junk you can still see today, rusted remains hinting at what happened. Recently, Marcus's cousin Willie was walking through his family's land when he spotted something beneath a fallen palm tree.
I was just walking past this place and then I spotted it sticking out, so I decided to come pick it up. I knew what it was, but I didn't know who was the rightful owner.
Willie found this, the dog tag of an American soldier from Fort Wayne, Private Irvin Otting. Naturally, Willie and Marcus wanted to know more.
You know, when you think back to the war, these people were very young.
The soldiers were young, just kids at the time. Most of them, though, are now long gone. But to learn more about the tag and the soldier who once wore it, Willie and Marcus called their cousin James in Australia, a World War II enthusiast with a restored American Jeep and a collection of Japanese weapons. If anybody could trace the dog tag, James could.
I said I would do my best to help out. So I straight away went onto Google and I typed in the surname.
And that's when James learned about Private Otting's time during Milne Bay. But maybe you'd better hear that story from Irvin himself.
The swamp is so thick that you had to hack your way through it. You could have an enemy soldier within 2 feet of you, and sometimes you wouldn't even know it.
At 94 years old, Irvin is still going strong, living in this house he built himself, farming these fields. Back on Papua New Guinea, the news was spreading fast.
Everybody here was, really found it interesting that the guy was still alive when I was telling them.
Irvin's war stories read like a screenplay, but for him it was serious business. He was nearly killed when an errant mortar landed too close to his machine gun nest.
I was hit with a shrapnel from an 81 millimeter mortar, our own. That's what burnt me up. It had to be our own stupidity that ruined my life.
Irvin was knocked out cold by the explosion, which also tore off his helmet and blew out a piece of his skull.
I didn't even hear the mortar go off. All I felt was the blood running down over my body.
He would be unconscious for weeks in a Philippine hospital. This is a sketch of him there. But soon after this, he awoke and noticed something very important was missing.
When I woke up, that's the first thing I said. Where's my dog tags? Don't know. I give up the idea of ever finding them.
But fate wouldn't allow that to happen. Overwhelmed by the chance discovery and Irvin's near death on their family's land 75 years earlier, the cousins from down under knew they had to return the favor.
This person put his life on the line. I thought the least I could do is to take them back to him personally and hand them to him would be the right and proper thing to do.
And that's just what he did, arriving in Fort Wayne carrying a special cargo for express delivery. The Otting family already waiting.
I'm James, and I've travelled a long way to bring you something very special. I'd like to present you with your dog tag, which you left, that you lost all those years ago.
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Yes, I can imagine.
Bringing the dog tag was easy.
Thank you for
finding the words.
putting your life, for putting your life on the line for us, mate.
Not so much.
You know, without you guys, we wouldn't be where we are today, mate.
For these to get lost was a real surprise. 'Cause a good soldier never takes them off the back. Yeah. And I'll never lose it again.
I'm sure you won't.
Everything is okay for you people over there now?
We have our freedom.
Yeah.
We have our freedom. Yeah. People like you putting your life on the line for us. So there's the least I could do.
Well, you can't imagine the feeling when they said somebody found your dog tags. In other words, they found part of you. I couldn't believe it. Well, it finally come true. And we thank God for that.
The pressure, you can feel it. Imagine you're just 17 years old, still in high school, and you're facing the biggest performance of your life, guiding a 1,000-pound horse in lockstep with dozens of others in front of the president, dignitaries, and a global TV audience. Military precision.
Hi, pretty. I know we're disrupting dinner.
Brianna Spear is one of 24 young women on Culver Academy's elite horse team, the Equestriennes.
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure behind it.
She's from Fort Wayne, riding in the inaugural parade on her horse, Tobiana. Oh yeah, you can bet the horses feel the nerves too.
She wasn't very friendly at first, but we eventually bonded after I fed her plenty of treats.
Drilling like this since October, every move scrutinized. The Equestriennes and the boys, the Black Horse Troop.
Yeah, we have about 4 practices a week preparing for inaugural, and it definitely can be a lot.
Maintaining control of your horse, keeping your bearing, and of course, the all-important uniform. Small details really add up. And now the invitation from Mike Pence, the team prepares to deploy.
We've seen pictures of years past of them going. We have them hung up all around campus of just all the troops that have gone before.
So how do you move 80 horses and all their riders, a small army, from the Midwest to the nation's capital?
6 18-wheelers to get the horses there, and we're going to be taking 80 head of horses. It'll take another box 18-wheeler to get our hay and bedding, our gator, and then the equipment to care for the horses.
Luckily, experience is on their side. Troops from Culver Academies have marched in inauguration since 1913, and this year marks the 104th anniversary of that first ride.
In 1913, Thomas Marshall, who was then the governor of Indiana, became the vice president of the United States, and that was our first inaugural. Now we're coming full circle for Vice President Pence.
The Black Horse Troop, still as they were all those years ago, except this time Kevin Tai, the first Chinese squadron leader in the school's history, commanding his troops. And for the Equestriennes, who began riding more recently in the 1970s, well, the excitement is only tempered by academy culture and a certain kind of poise.
I think it means to be carrying on a tradition and to be a part of something more, and when generations in the future will look back, it's kind of cool that all have been a part of it.
I mean, it is something that it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our kids, and when you see their faces when they've gone down Pennsylvania Avenue and they've persevered, often in horrible cold weather, they're just ecstatic. It's amazing.